Assalamu alaikum and welcome to The Bigger Picture. Today's discussion is mental health, and we're trying to understand what the stigma is that surrounds this subject.
Social, finance, employment, transport, welfare, education, careers, health, politics, world peace, disability. This is The Bigger Picture.
We'll be asking how we can look after our mental health. Our experts today in the studio will be answering some of the questions to help us. Mental health is often misunderstood as mental health problems or mental illness. In truth, everyone has a level of mental health. Mental health can be thought of how we feel about ourselves and those around us, our ability to form friendships and relationships, and our ability to learn from others and develop both psychologically and emotionally. Well, we sent out our intrepid team to get an insight into what you thought mental health is on the street.
I don't think there's enough information. I don't think we are talking about, and I don't think there are conversations happening just within society about it. So, yeah, I think not enough information there.
There is information out there, but it's just knowing where to access it. And a lot of people don't know where to access it. I think that's the problem.
People don't understand it, but if you sit down and explain it to them, that I've had to do with my family, who still don't understand why I say I have depression, they just think, oh, you can't be bothered.
I think that obviously, the stigma is a lot less than it was, say, 10 years ago, but I think there is a big issue with being able to freely talk about it in the same respect that someone with diabetes would be able to talk about, they need tablets to make their blood sugar levels right.
I feel that it's really difficult for people with mental health issues to own up to the fact they've got mental health issues. They'd be really worried to tell their friends, especially to tell their bosses at work. I feel that people would feel that they'd probably be disadvantaged in some way from being trusted at work or being promoted at work, and I feel that there's definitely still a big stigma with it.
I definitely think there is stigma around mental health. For some reason, we don't treat depression. You don't talk about it if you had a broken hand. I would be fine to say, oh, I have a broken hand, but you don't come in and say, oh, I'm depressed. So yeah, there definitely is stigma surrounding mental health.
I really don't know too much about mental health. There's not much awareness being raised around here. It goes unnoticed, and people don't really want to bring it up just because they're scared to reach out to somebody.
If you've got a physical health issue, you go see a doctor, but it's not the kind of same thing where you go see a doctor if you've got a mental health issue.
A lot of the older families and generations have really struggled with the idea that there might be something a little bit different about their child.
So that was quite interesting. So you can see various views from people on the street. Well, in the studio, we have two psychotherapists, and we'll have other people on the phone as well. Well, let's introduce them, shall we? Hi, Riva, and hi, Sham. So we have Riva Joffe. She's a psychotherapist, thank you very much, with more than 20 years in this speciality. We also have Sham Silvarathnam. She's a creative psychotherapist.
Art psychotherapist.
Art psychotherapist. Well, thank you very much for defining that again for me. Riva, tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, if you go far enough back, I used to work on fossils. But that is a long time ago. And since then, I've done a number of things. Yeah. I've taught in schools. I've been a public health nutritionist. Yeah. I've done a lot of equalities work with the health service, with police. And then I trained as a psychotherapist 25 years ago or so. Oh,
that's fantastic. And Charm, yourself, tell me, you've got quite an interesting background as well.
Yeah, so I worked in technology for 10 years and I was craving to work more with people and to be creative in my work. So I retrained as an art psychotherapist.
Yeah. And also you've got sort of two cultures, haven't you? You've got British culture and your background is also from Sri Lanka as well. That's interesting. So we'll just explain to our audience what else we have in the show. We'll also be talking to our resident We'll also be talking to our illustrator as well. I mean, he's got a blank canvas and he'll be drawing something, his magic pen, something that as we discuss unfolds, he'll be drawing something. So, Masood, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good about this, pretty confident.
Yeah, awesome, brilliant. And also we have John as well. John, looking forward to talk to you as well.
Yeah, likewise.
So, John, we'll be talking about career advice later on, and we have some questions for you as well. Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, all right. So, so we've got a short VT to give you some excitement as to what's being played, what's happening right now.
And we would like to hear your views and thoughts on this topic. Tweet us at The Bigger Pic using the hashtag MTA_TBP, or send us an email on thebiggerpicture@mta.tv. Our social media team is excited to read your responses. We will also be sharing your tweets, answering some of your questions during the show. But here's a question for you. If you get it right, you can win a prize. Tell us, when was the 4th volume of Brahina Ahmadiyya published? A. 1884, B. 1882, or C. 1886? Please send in the answer via Twitter or email.
Well, this is the mug that you can win, so I will urge you all to please tweet in, send us an email, and let's see how many people respond to this thing. So moving on. So, Riva, people suffer from anxiety, stress, they're getting married, they've got stress exams. Is that mental health? I don't know. Can you define what mental health is?
Well, I'll have a go, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's going to be my version, because there are thousands of us out there, and each of us has a different take on it. So I'm just going to try and give a picture as to, you know, what makes people mentally healthy, which common sense might suggest that it's being loved and cherished by your family or by the village or, you know, within the community, and that things go wrong and people develop problems and anxieties when they're not loved and even neglected and abused. You know, that in a way is common sense. There are various other theories that are around. You know, Western scientists, medics and geneticists are kind of piling on the evidence that we've got some things in our genetic makeup that might contribute to some parts of the things that might go wrong with us, and other people are saying biochemical imbalances. I think the jury's out on all this. We're at the beginning of this research, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we discussed earlier about what is normal and what is not normal, because I think it's quite difficult. People view things differently, don't they? So could you shed some light on what is normality?
Well, I can do my best.
Yeah.
You know, in most societies, people quite like to know how other people are going to respond. People like predictability. They like people to be a bit like themselves. And when they behave in a very different way, it's either scary or they feel powerless. They don't know what to do about it, you know? And so they get labelled with various quite nasty labels, some of it. You know, there are things like neurosis, psychosis. Most of it is distress, and it's probably got a very reasonable cause, you know, the sort of thing I was talking about before.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I've got some more questions to ask you as well, and Sham, I'll bring you in a second as well. But I just wanted to remind our viewers as well. As you know, on Twitter, we've been running a live poll, and we've been asking you a couple of questions. And the question that we've been asking our audiences via Twitter is, what do you think most likely causes someone to suffer from mental illness? And we gave them 3 options: genetics, life challenges, or personal attitude. So I urge our audience to continue tweeting and giving the poll, because that poll will end at about 9 o'clock. So in about 35 minutes, that poll will stop running, and then we'll give the results. So that's really good. Sham, in my introduction, I talked about the stigma associated with mental health as well. Can you just shed some light on that? Because there is an issue today, isn't there? We saw that we listened to the Vox Box at the beginning of the programme.
Yeah. So some of the Vox Box people mentioned, there's a shame around mental health. That's what we mean by stigma. And For me, I think about the society that we live in, the society that I live in. I'm a Londoner, I've been here most of my life. And we have a particular idea about what constitutes a normal person, as you mentioned to Riva. And a normal person might be somebody who we think is healthy, happy, positive in their outlook, in employment, successful in their relationships, perhaps going on holidays. Kind of, we've got a very specific idea about what normal is. So anytime we feel emotional distress or we see other people behaving in a way that we think is not normal, we label, and that creates an alienation for people.
Okay, interesting.
And that causes further distress, because people often feel that they have to hide how they're really feeling, and hiding how you feel and hiding who you are can be a very damaging experience.
This thing about showing, seeing, when you see someone who's disabled, they might have a leg that's damaged, might be in a wheelchair, you can actually see the person, I can help that person, I can help open the door, I can help them cross the road. But when someone suffers from mental health, it's not something that's visible, is it? So how can you talk to these people and get and understand how they're feeling?
Well, if you happen to be close to the person, for example, you can obviously offer to listen to them. And I think that's probably the best thing that you could do for somebody that's emotionally distressed, if you're not a professional. Offer them the opportunity to talk, let their feelings out, and just listen and be non-judgmental.
Okay, so listening's quite important. Oh, fantastic. Also, we have a Dr. Hanif Khan on the phone as well to join us today. He's also a psychotherapist as well. And the question that I would like to ask Dr. Hanif Khan is, just before I ask it, just want to say hello and welcome, Dr. Hanif Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Hanif Khan Sahib. How are you today?
Wa alaikum assalam. Just to correct that I'm Dr. Shamim Ahmed, not Khan.
Right,
and,
okay.
I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm a psychiatrist working in North London in UK.
Yes, okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. The question that I wanted to ask Dr. Shamim Ahmed is, what's the journey that someone goes through becoming mentally ill, and then what's the journey that they follow through when they stop being mentally ill or become, as Riva mentioned, normal? Can you shed some light on that for us?
Yeah, it's a multifactorial problem, and it depends upon the type and kind of illness from which a person is suffering. Many people, they try to hide their illness, and due to lack of understanding of their problems, and sometimes due to stigma, as it has been mentioned by one of your colleagues on the program. Sometimes the family members, they note a few changes and a few symptoms, but they don't want to discuss with the person or with the family, and it may take a long time to bring such clients to the attention of their family doctors and see what it is. Some patients accept to be seen by a psychiatrist, and there are some, they don't want to be. And it may take few months or sometimes few years before they are brought to the attention of psychiatric services. Now, a psychiatrist is trained to diagnose and understand what the illness is, and to discuss with the client and with their permission, discuss with their family members like a wife or a husband or parents. And it's on their job to diagnose it, make a plan, and involve other colleagues, specialists in the journey on the mental illness. Mild type of a mental illness like depression and anxiety are quite treatable and curable, though they are prone to have some recurrences. But there are some serious mental illnesses like bipolar affective disorder or schizophrenia. They are quite difficult to treat, and they are not curable. Now, there's a long journey which involves and affects the person and their families. And sometimes they need admissions in the hospital. And it's not only the person is affected, but his whole family, his whole life is affected. And it involves a number of factors, diagnosing the illness, making a care plan, prescribing medication, involving various kind of other professionals like psychotherapists, and as you have got a colleague with you who is an art therapist. And it involves also making a care plan and supporting them socially in the society. So it's quite a long journey if somebody is affected by mental illness.
Could I ask you a question? When we talk about this long journey, what about medication? How does medication help? Is medication a short solution? I can ask my guests in the studio as well later on. But is medication a short solution or is it long term?
It depends. It depends upon the type of the illness. Yeah. If it's depression or anxiety, is the medication is prescribed like anxiolytic medications or antidepressants. And these should be taken for at least 6 months after the person feels that he has become absolutely back to his normal self. But the other illnesses like bipolar and schizophrenia, they need long-term medication. And sometimes they need a combination of medication like antipsychotic medications and antidepressants. But the medication play a major role in getting better and becoming functional in their life.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's shed some great light on our discussion today. And just like to say thank you very much for your input. That was quite good there, quite interesting. Well, thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Now I think what we like to do is that we talk about our press highlights. This is what the world press has been talking about this subject, and I know it's something that interests you, and we've discussed some of the papers as well. So the first sort of magazine that we chose was the Times magazine, and the first question was how rudeness affects medical professionals and their patients. The other one that we chose was the New York Times, Psychiatry's Mind-Brain Problem. And the News Hub, which is quite a good newspaper and tackles these issues quite well, is why mental health should be a political priority. The other one we chose was The Guardian, Mental Health Stigma Hasn't Gone Away. And a very interesting one from the Time magazine is 29% of young doctors are depressed, and that was a study that was done. And also The Vice, this is quite an interesting one. Can an app really help manage your mental health? It's quite interesting. And lastly, The Guardian, number of suicides has increased with male rates since 2001. I mean, that's quite incredible. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take a short sort of break with yourselves. I'll leave you to look at the newspapers and look at the articles that resonates with you, and we'll discuss them in a short time. I'm now just going to go and talk to our resident career advisor, and because we had some questions that have come in for John, and I'll talk to you again in a second. Thank you very much. John, so thank you. John, just tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit of an introduction.
Oh, well, I'm a best-selling author of 12 non-fiction books, and I'm an expert in job hunting and career problem solving, but also starting businesses and entrepreneurship, because I think these days a career, you could be employed or you could be self-employed.
Yeah, exactly right. Let me start with the first question that we received via email. The question Shums, and he says, I'm thinking of leaving for 15 years, and he's thinking about going into IT contracting. So his question is, what factors should he consider?
Very, very big step, because when you've been working for an organisation for 15 years, you've accrued a pension. If that that organisation was to make you redundant, you'd be entitled to a sort of fairly sizable statutory redundancy payment. When you go contracting, the benefits are that you can earn a lot more money and you can be more in control of your life. You can more do work on your terms, you're your own boss. The downside is that should the contract finish and you can't find another one, you're out of job, you've got no income, so you don't have quite as much security. And I think what you've got to do is you've got to be very careful that you don't burn your bridges. You don't sort of resign from one company just because you've got a contract. You've really got to know that there's a demand for your skills in the long term. And the best thing to do about that is to go and speak to recruitment consultants and look at other people who are making a living out of it.
Yeah, an interesting thing is I remember when I was fully employed, my background from IT, is that we used to roughly change our jobs every 4 years or 2 years, but now people are changing their jobs, their career so frequently.
Well, I think what we all need to take on board the idea that just because you're employed, that is not security. And in some ways, if you've got a contract, often that contract has a longer period than your notice period if you're employed. So sometimes you're almost guaranteeing yourself, because if the contract says it's for a year and that's what the term says, you're going to get paid for a year. But I think we need to see ourselves as businessmen. We're selling services to employers as an employee or as a contractor.
Brilliant. Okay, John, so we've been talking about mental health as our topic today. But if we look at that subject in the employment, you've got CEOs at the top of their game under pressure, you've got middle management, and also you've got new people starting a new employment. I mean, the stress levels are quite high. How do they cope with that situation?
Well, I think it's an interesting thing because everyone looks at the people who are at the top of the organisation and feel that somehow they are superhuman and that they have answers that the rest of us don't. But the truth is they're human beings. Yeah. And, there are lots of cases of high-profile people simply burning out, suffering huge stresses, not being able to sleep, having, to take professional help. So it can affect all of us. And in many ways, there's less sympathy if you're at the top than you are lower down in the organisation because you're expected to be strong.
Yeah, interesting. So I'd just like to finish off very briefly, is that if somebody wanted to take up a profession in the health industry, more specifically looking and helping people with mental health, or even those people who don't suffer from an illness, what sort of advice would you give?
Well, I say do it if it feels right. Yeah. You'll always hear me sort of say you've got to do something if it feels right, because if that's part of your destiny, your life's work, make it your life's work. But I think you've got to go into it positively. My God, we need people to go and help other people with mental health. There's like, it feels to me there's like a pandemic of mental health around the world. We need to look after each other. We need to support each other. It's a noble career.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. Just a quick reminder. Remember that you can get in touch with us via Twitter and get in touch at MTA Bigger Pick using the hashtag MTA_TBP, and obviously use the traditional way as well. Send us an email at MTA the bigger picture at mta.tv, and obviously we have our social media team who are there ready to receive your messages, and we'll be sharing some of them throughout the programme. And so what we're doing now, just before we continue our conversation, I just want to see how our illustrator Masood is getting on. Masood, can we just have a look at what you've done so far?
There you go.
Okay, can you see, so you've got a split screen there? Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Describe what you're trying to do there.
Right. So I'm going with a bit of my personal experience. I used to suffer from bipolar disorder.
We can see it here if it's clearer for you. Just here.
When I was younger, and I used to have some great days, some very bad days. So my dark days would feel like the eyes represent all my fears, my anxieties, depression, etc. Just staring down at me, always keeping me down. Whereas when I was high, always happy, everything just seemed brighter. The flowers represent the more happier times. So I'm just currently getting the outline sorted out for now. and then I'll start with the initial painting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we'll come to. So what do you think of that then?
Yes, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be just right for you, wouldn't it, with your particular way of looking at it?
Isn't it, Sham? So Sham, I've got one question for you. Is how do you get access to the therapeutic services that are available in the Western world, I guess?
Well, I suppose there are a few routes. People can go and see their GPs. Some people may try a faith-based approach. There may be, within whichever faith they practice, a way at the community level of dealing with emotional distress.
Yeah. And is it easily accessible, this therapeutic services?
It very much depends from which community you're from. Men find it difficult to come forward in general because society has quite oppressive ideals around masculinity, which make it difficult for men to come forward. Black and ethnic minorities struggle to come forward sometimes. And then there's also the issue of services not being really made appropriate or accessible from people from various communities. So there are a number of issues in terms of accessibility.
Okay, cool. I mean, I did say that I'll ask you the question again about medication. So the research that we've done, the medication that's available seems to only work short term, obviously depending on how serious the condition is. What's your thoughts on that, Riva?
Yes, well, I don't have a very hard and fast rule. I know there are some people who think that medication is an absolute no-no. I've sometimes suggested to my people, that if they really are so depressed that they can hardly get out of bed in the morning, that maybe it would be worth trying an antidepressant, just to get their head above the parapet. But you know what? In all these years, I find that a lot of these antidepressants, although a lot of research has been done on them, they tend to either make people feel more anxious or more like zombies, if I can use such a word, but that they just sort of lose the will to live, they become two-dimensional, and when they come off it, they feel a lot better. I'm not wonderfully keen on it. If you can talk to somebody who's going to understand, and get you.
So, Sean, we talked about it, didn't we? The approach. You mentioned it earlier, just listening to somebody, talking to somebody. That's a way forward as well.
Yep, that's one way. Depending on how well you know the person. I think people feel a lot of distress when they don't feel understood and they don't feel able to be seen for who they are, appreciated, loved. That causes a lot of distress. So if you can give somebody some non-judgmental listening time, then that's helpful.
That's really useful. We also have on the phone with us Simonette Varga. She's all the way from Australia, and she's also a creative psychologist and also a clinical hypnotherapist. And just want to say thank you, first of all, for waking up early in the morning. You're all the way in Australia. I guess how early is it there in Australia?
Well, it's not too bad actually. Hi there. It's only 7:58 in the morning, so it's not too bad.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Simonette, just based when we look at your profile, we understand the work that you've done about looking after people's mental health and how to sort of be healthy. The question I have for you is, how can we protect ourselves from becoming mentally ill or being anxious, suffering from anxiety, or when there's something very stressful in our lives?
Yes. So, look, this is a really important question. It's an important topic, and I've been working with people from all walks of life, and sometimes people are coming in with symptoms of depression or anxiety. As we were saying, medication is not always the way to go. So the things we can do, early intervention, and one of the first things I ask people is, what is your leisure, pleasure activity? What are things that bring joy to you? And most people can tell you what that is, and most people aren't finding the time to do those things. So I would encourage people to look at their lifestyle. Is it possible for you to do some of those creative aspects that might be, been sort of hidden in the cupboard? Bring those out, do some creative arts. Have some time where you're more in the present, if you like, and in the flow. we've been working a lot with people with who have been experiencing anxiety, depression or trauma and looking at mindfulness practices. So mindfulness is kind of the new word, I guess, for meditation, being present. And there's been a lot of really successful research and outcomes, and I know I use it in my practice with everyone who comes in, teaching them a way to find their own, if you like, way of being an observer of their thoughts rather than getting it, interacting with everything and going on this sort of negative tangent, but being able to be more the witness and observer, have some distance and space. And from that place, our body starts to relax a little bit more. We're not getting activated, by concerns or worries. So mindfulness is something people can learn. It's a fairly easy thing to teach. And it's this ongoing practice. If we have somewhat way of having reflective time, where we can just catch up with ourselves. What's the quality of my thoughts? So in psychology, we look a lot at beliefs, we look at values, finding meaningful work. Our work life is very important for our mental health. And of course, social networks, our friendships, our relationships.
Exactly.
So sometimes people need some help with that. Yeah,
exactly right. And also we talked about relationships as well, having healthy relationships. I have a question for you with reference to diets. I mean, especially here I know in Australia people are very healthy. That's the impression we have in the UK. So how much is diet relation to keep somebody healthy mentally?
Well, it's not actually my big area of interest, I have to say, but yes, what we're eating, healthy food, is very important for us. I do think that it's not only food and healthy food, it's lifestyle, it is our attitude and the way we think, it is the relationships and what things are happening in our life. Look, over here in Australia, we have a beautiful lifestyle, but we also have a terrible amount of anxiety and mental health issues here. We're not immune to it. So I don't think it's enough the food that we eat. I think it is, we have to kind of develop these attitude of actually being a little bit more resilient, I think, to emotions. We don't have to always be seeking happiness. That's not possible, and that might be an unrealistic expectation. Wow. So I think hope, optimism, how do we build those into our life? But yeah, so I have to say I love mangoes, and we have plenty of mangoes at the moment because we're in the summer season over here. And they make me very happy. Yeah,
and we like doner kebabs and Indian food. It's the UK's, at the moment it was the best food, the national food was the chicken curry. Well, thank you very much, Suminette. Really appreciate you calling in so early in the morning from the States. Thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Australia. Well, have a great time in Australia. Thank you very much. Riva, I can ask you the same question, really, because when you look at your profile, you studied nutritionist quite a lot, didn't you?
I taught
so
nutrition.
How much of that does relate to health?
Well, it's really interesting. Obviously, there are going to be some people who suffer from some food allergies and intolerances. There are people who get terrible migraines if they eat cheese or chocolate or whatever, and of course it's sensible to keep off those things. But one of the main things I would say about food is that the media are always telling people to eat healthily, but eating healthily, certainly in these times in this country, it's expensive, and people cannot afford the fruit and vegetables. They need to pack the calories in, and so it can make people feel very discriminated against if they're told to eat stuff they can't afford.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks for that. I mean, that was a nice sort of summary to what Suminette was saying. Sian, in terms of the articles, which article did you choose to talk about?
Well, they're all quite interesting. In relation to the psychiatrist on the phone.
Can I just have a look at that one? Okay. So can I just show that to the screen then? Okay, cool. There you go. Excellent. So if you just talk a little bit about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So this article outlines the biopsychosocial model of illness. Yeah. And I think that's very important. Myself, and I know Riva and many others, would like to understand emotional distress in the political, social and cultural context. And personally, I feel very strongly about the medicalisation of human distress. I know that there's a very good author, Joanna Moncrief, a critical psychiatrist, who talks very regularly about the long-term damaging effects of antipsychotic drugs, for example. So I think that there has to be a very nuanced and serious discussion about what medicalisation does and the impact of individualising distress.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's understandable. We live in a very individualised society, and so therefore we tend to put problems into people instead of thinking about the context.
Yeah, and also about the community aspect as well. And so Riva, which did you choose another one as well? I know that we talked about, but let me just ask Riva. Riva,
like that one too.
I know.
I think we ought to talk more about it. You know?
Well, we can. Once you've just told me which other article you chose as well, is that The Guardian there?
This Guardian one, yes. Well, this is more about stigma, isn't it? You know, you started talking about stigma and what that means for people who don't fit in. When I say fit in, I mean it in quotes really, you know, who are marginalised, who it depends on which society people live in. But
this is the story about mental health stigma hasn't gone away yet, has it? Yeah, and that's exactly what one of the contexts of the programme today.
Exactly. You know, so that, you know quite a lot about this. If you're the wrong religion in a country which is intolerant, you know, or the wrong race in a racist country, these things can really make life very difficult, especially if any therapy that people are looking for, the people who are doing the therapy are kind of part of the establishment, and they can't listen with a really open ear. And you know, these are the things that perpetuate stigma and make families feel shame. And so sometimes, at the very worst case, families feel so ashamed that they have a child that is not adjusted in their terms or in society's terms, that they maltreat and abuse or neglect that child instead of, you know.
I mean, it's always a big fear, isn't it? When you have children growing up, you want them to fit in, don't you?
Oh, don't you, Jack?
And it's always a big worry. Will he or she have good friends at school? What sort of influences? Because we know the amount of stresses. I mean, I think we discussed it earlier. Is it 1 in 4 children at some point in their life will experience some sort of mental health or some depression?
I mean, I take the view that we're all likely to experience varying levels of emotional distress through life. I know the statistic is that 1 in 4 of us will experience or know somebody who has experienced it.
Okay, well, that time has come. Really, I mean, we're nearing the end of the programme today, but there was a poll, as you remember, that we were running, and so let's see if we can reveal the results. The question that we asked was, it'll be coming up on screen in a second. It was, what do you think is the most cause of someone suffering mental illness? And so we had 3 options. And the first one was, do people feel it was genetics or life challenges or personal attitude? So I think, are we ready to now show the results? Okay, let's have a look. So I think there you go. Let's have a look at the poll results there. Oh, okay. So that's interesting, because my personal one, I tweeted, I put it down as personal attitude, but it looks like it's life challenges. So what do you feel about that?
This is what you were saying before, wasn't it?
Yes.
You know, all of us are going to be challenged. We're going to have relationships that go wrong. We're going to find ourselves lonely, bereaved. You know, it's a natural part of life, the challenges. It's how you deal with them, which actually then takes us back to what you think, which is how you deal with them, you know.
That's right, because I always thought, because, you know, the attitude, you know, that you put, so you can either wake up in the morning and you have a choice. Do I want to be happy or do I want to be sad? So that's my take on it. Well, anyway, what we'd like to do now is probably see how Masood has been getting on with his drawing. Masood, could you please just show us what you've done? Wow, look at that. It's a bit more detailed.
Yes.
So, okay. Awesome. So you think you'll be ready soon? Oh, look, okay.
I still feel like it's unfinished, in my opinion.
But look, you don't have too much time, do you?
No, of course
not. And I'm sure later on, I think you'll probably add a bit more detail to it.
A bit of colour as well, and then post it online so everyone can see.
I think that's really good. So that's brilliant. So in terms of the quote that you've written something there. What's the quote that you've put there?
This quote by Plutarch, what we achieve inwardly will change our outer reality. That one hit me at home for this one. I personally feel like if you change yourself from within, your outlook of life will will improve. But a lot of the times we change from outside in, and that's the unhealthy way. We mask out. We just add layers to our problems without actually getting rid of it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, all right. So we're going to now explain or let our audience know who won or got the correct answer to the question that we had asked earlier on. So we can remind our audiences of what that question was. So the question that we had asked is that could you tell us when the 4th volume of Brahine Ahmadiyya was published, and was it in 1884, 1882 or 1886? So we've had a number of people who have sent in and they've got a correct answer. So basically, we can explain what was the right answer. We can reveal it on the screen as well. So the answer was, right, 1884. Okay, all right, so that's the correct answer. So I've told that through the algorithms that we've run to choose who win this cup here is either one of you two. You can decide. You pick a number between 1 and 18, and if you get the answer, whichever number you choose, we will then, through our algorithms, we'll be able to pick a winner. So there's no pressure.
Can I choose 17? It's a very nice number.
Interesting. Okay, right, so 17. So I'm sure that they will tell me who will win in a second once they run their algorithms. Okay, so I've just been told it's Samira. So Samira, so if you're listening, thank you very much for entering into the competition. So you have won this cup, and we will be sending this cup to you in due course. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Well done. So I guess what we're going to do now is probably coming to an end of our programme, but obviously it's been really interesting, and thank you very much for your input in today's programme. I hope it was very good. And Masood, do we have your final? I think your final drawing. We can just finish off with that.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. So we'll look forward to Instagramming that in a short while. So I guess the interesting thing is at the moment is let me just get this thing going here. So really, if you understand, we all sort of experience different types of emotions, from joy to excitement, and also anxiety as well, which we talked about. This is all part of just our mental health, and we're recognising that our feelings, it's a normal thing, and it's important to recognise that these things actually take place. And it's something that we all share as individuals. We are all individuals, and we share these. But it's also extremely important to know that you're not alone. And the best advice that you can give to a loved one is that mental health condition can be treated, and getting early help can prevent difficulties from getting more serious. So what we thought we would do here at the end is that we had a selection of quotes that we thought that may prompt some feeling or some understanding to what we've been talking about. So we can run those now, can we?
Here is a selection of quotes from prominent people that we thought may prompt some feeling and understanding. What we achieve inwardly will change outer reality. Plutarch. Understanding is the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be recovery. J.K. Rowling. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. Aristotle. Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also harder to bear. C.S. Lewis. The contentment and peace of the heart does not come from worldly and material objects. It can only come when a person annihilates himself in the love of Allah Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the Fifth.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to remind our viewers as well that Samira, we will be sending you this mug shortly. And so again, just to remind our viewers, thank you again very much for taking part in this competition. And it's very, very, very great that you can do that. So just like to say thank you again for our viewers for getting involved with our discussion. And no doubt, I tell you, it's going to continue on Twitter. So again, please join us next time when we discuss United Nations and its role in the world today. Is it fit for purpose? And as always, we'll have our experts in the studio to answer all your questions. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from my guest and all the viewers around the world. Assalamu alaikum.